something for youngins who tryna reach goals. And still can't stop, won't stop. Did the puffy with the bob, smell the roses, no capping, I done a lie, baby.
I think it's almost an elephant in the room conversation now to speak about, is AAU more important than regular season? What I mean by regular season is really team, really program. So is your AAU program more important than your high school team or your middle school team or your elementary school township team? I've always thought, yes, it is. But I just want to get into it a little bit more because I think a lot of people feel that it is, but the way that things are actually carried out in practicality, it's really not. It still takes a back seat to a high school program. And I don't think it should, but so I first realized that AAU was more important than high school when I was a sophomore in high school. So that would have been 2007, and it was my AAU was April. It was April of my sophomore year, so AAU season. At that time, I happened to be on a high school team who won the WIPIO, which is essentially the league, right, of where we are, and on a team that had 9 seniors, who pretty much all played on that team. So for that reason, I didn't really get in varsity games. I lettered that year, which basically means I got scrap minutes. I got a minute and 30 left in the game when we were blowing teams out, right? Stuff like that. So I didn't really play. I didn't really play varsity basketball. I was pretty much a JV player at that time. And now that said, now I was good though at that point. I was a good player. But that said, that same season in April, once the season was over, and I was playing AAU, and this happened to be at Duquesne. There was a tournament at Duquesne, and the coach's name is Kim Lewis. I know he's a Division I coach somewhere now, but he was the assistant at Duquesne at that time, and I had an AAU game there and played really well. And after that game, that coach from Duquesne walked right up to me and my mother, and boom, like that started my recruiting process. I started getting, that was the first school that had ever spoke to me. And at that time, I really didn't even have college in my mind. But so I say all that to say I wasn't even getting in varsity games, and then started to get interest from a Division I school, legitimate interest. And that interest carried on for the next 2 years. I ended up going there. I wasn't a Division I player. I was a Division I talent, which is why I started to get recruited. And then many schools came after that as well, but I wasn't a Division I player. There's a difference. But anyway, and I remember thinking when he asked me, where do you go to school? And I said, Bethel Park. And the next thing I had to tell him was, I'm a JV player. I don't even play on varsity, and I forget exactly what his response was, and I don't want to be putting words in his mouth, but essentially his words were, his attitude was, well, whatever, like, that's funny, and I don't really care even if you were a varsity player at Bethel Park High School, because it's Bethel Park High School, and we understand what we're looking at. So I was a good player, and he realized that. So that's when I realized, hold on, I'm getting recruited by a Division I school at this point, but I don't even play varsity on my high school team. That coach had to see me for one. He wasn't coming to Bethel Park High School to watch me play or watch anybody play. So he had to see me. So AAU gave me the opportunity for a coach to even see me. And then on top of that, if the metric was, if you're not a varsity player, you're no good or whatever, I didn't play varsity at high school, but I was playing whatever I was playing in AAU. So I immediately thought, hold on, I don't need this. This high school shit isn't going to get me to my dream. It's not going to get me to college. This AAU shit is going to get me to college. So that was 2007, and that was just my experience. I'm sure those same experiences or those type of things could be said for years before me, generations before me, but that was just when I noticed it. And I think now it's even more so. It's even heightened that there's more attention and there's more opportunity and there's more emphasis on AAU season as far as kids living out their individual dreams and goals and progressing as a basketball player. The metric is really held in AAU. And so now here's the problem. Now I'm going to get into the problem. There's so much structure and tradition and seriousness and professionalism that goes into a high school program still. So that makes people feel a certain way about it. It makes them put that at the forefront. I'll give you an example. If you ever, and this is, I'm not making shit up. People know this is true. Most AAU programs, especially high level shoe circuit AAU programs, it's very rare your entire team practices together, if you practice at all, for real. So let's just start there. Can a certain kid miss a high school practice? Generally, hell no. Can he just not show up and not be there? Hell no. Can a high school coach always rely on a certain roster to show up to their games? For the most part, absolutely. It's not like that in AAU. You might have kids who just don't show up to a tournament or decide they want to go play with another team for a certain showcase or something on any given weekend. Or a kid lives in a different state, so he can't get a ride or whatever happened and he can't show up to your tournament or your practice. That would never happen. Where we are in Western PA, generally that doesn't fly. There's so much structure and accountability and seriousness in your high school team that's a kid can't just miss games. He can't just miss practice and things just roll on forward and like, okay, we'll catch you at the next one. That still exists in AAU. That's one of many things. And so we could start it there. If AAU is more important and people feel that way, then why aren't kids held to the same standard that they're held to in a high school program? Why is there not as much structure? Why is there not as much of demand from coaches? You need to run those programs with the same seriousness that high school coaches run them. Now, I could get into more issues, but I'm not going to drag it on. But I'm going to tell you where that is a big problem in itself. Because a high school coach, and I'm speaking for our area generally, but I know this shit has to go on around most of the country. And if a high school coach never played college basketball, never played professional, shit, maybe even never was a varsity starter, that doesn't mean you can't be a high school coach at a high level program. And so that in itself is a little off to me. That's a little off. Now that would make you unqualified in most people's standards. But say you're a basketball guru and you just understand how to run a team and you've done a lot of research and shit and you study, because that 100% could be the truth. So if you're that guy and you're a high school teacher and you're also like you're a high school coach and you're like a history teacher, or you're a doctor, or you're a physical therapist or something, your regular salary, how you provide for your family doesn't revolve around that basketball team. Most of the time, not all the time, most of the time, the people pulling the strings in an AAU program, the people coaching the highest level teams in AAU, that is their career. Their career, their life, all the money that they make, how they're going to survive and feed their family usually comes from something of that basketball circle. So you have one coach who lives and breathes basketball. You have another coach who does it as a side job. Who are you going to want? Usually, I want the guy who's all in. That's the AAU coach. That's not the high school coach. Yet that high school coach is going to get hired by a lot of programs. That said, that same high school coach who is really underqualified or can't match up with that AAU coach is going to also have the authority to tell kids what they can and can't do. Will try to put clouds over their head and make their parents feel like they have to do certain things to not piss them off. You know, I don't want you playing with certain AAU teams. Now, they can't say these things, but WPIAL, if anybody in the WPIAL or the PIA happens to see this video, take what I'm saying serious. People do this shit. They've always done this. High school coaches hold things over kids' head. They threaten kids without putting it in those words. They tell them not to work out with certain people without putting in those words. They tell them not to play for certain AAU teams and programs without putting it in those words. They recruit kids without putting it in those words. They do all of those things. And I'm not saying that it's wrong for people to do that, because in certain situations that needs to be done. But if this is a guy or a girl who's completely underqualified and does not do this full time, that person should not be able to have control over a child as to who they're going to train with, who they're going to play with, what tournaments they're going to go to. You have coaches who would tell kids, you better not miss preseason open gyms and hang that stuff over their head when they have an opportunity to literally go play in some of the biggest tournaments in the country where you're going to have literally LeBron James in attendance with his son and everybody underneath him in the basketball world who can legitimately give kids an opportunity. But then you have some history teacher who makes $5,000 a year trying to tell kids what they can and can't do outside of their program. That makes no sense. But it's allowed to go on, and it continues to go on because the structure, the foundation, the tradition, the seriousness, the professional level of AAU programs is not there. People don't take it that serious. And they take it serious from the performance standpoint, but they don't take it as serious from the infrastructure, the functioning standpoint. And that is a problem because now you give people in these high school programs, in these township programs who know nothing about the AAU circuit, know nothing about how basketball has changed, know nothing about what it takes to be a Division I player, Division II player, a professional player. They have no idea, but you're allowing them to have all of that power and put these things over kids and parents' head and make them feel like, well, if you piss me off, you're not going to be on my varsity team. When that varsity team can't stand up in no way, shape, or form to a Team Durant, 17U team. And that just is a problem for kids at the surface. So if AAU is really more important than high school, which in reality it is, but not in practicality how it's rolled out. If it is more important than all of the AAU programs, all the coaches, the parents, everybody needs to be a little bit more educated on the functions of how things work so that you can actually make it true and make it hold up that AAU is the number one priority for your child. Now, that doesn't go for every high school, and every high school doesn't have bozos coaching the team, and every high school doesn't have people who are trying to control kids. So it's not everywhere. And obviously, if you go to private schools, a lot of the time that shit is might even be a better situation than some of the best AAU programs because of what's going on in the tradition at that school. But for the people who are going to those regular public schools, you really need to understand what is the best route for your kid and what they're going to get out of it. And then that said, you'll know how to move, you'll know how to act accordingly. So if your coach is trying to give you bullshit about what you can and can't do, you brush them off. And at the end of the day, that coach wants a record. That coach wants to be able to win games and wants to be able to, feel good about their career. So if you're really helping them win games and you're going off to AAU tournaments when they don't want you to, who really gives a shit? You're going to come back and he's putting you right in that game because he needs you to win, or if coaches are telling you when you can and can't work out with certain people, or if they have a beef with a certain trainer or an AAU program and they're trying to push you away from it, you don't have to listen to that stuff, man. Those guys cannot control your career in no way, shape, or form. Go do what you do. It's in the rules. They can't punish kids because of that stuff technically. So, they can only go but so far. They can try to, scare you into it. But at the end of the day, as a parent, as a player, you have to do what's in the best interest of the player, of the kid and their career. If you want to be a part of REL Academy, you want to come here and train, go to relacademy.com to learn more about it and inquire. You can shoot a call or a text to 412-660-4790. We love to get you to the academy and get you to experience what we do here.